It could cost 4 draft picks and a 1-year contract for the Washington Commanders to figure out their offensive tackle situation. And I'm going to tell you about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this episode of Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day. And don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast, and you can continue this conversation with me by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider. Just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders and sign up today to be an insider. From there, you will get news, analysis, insight, opinions, one-on-one information, and bonus content directly from me. No hashtags, no apps, no filters. All of it comes directly to your phone, and then you text me back, and we converse that way. Again, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to get in on that. I'm David Harrison, credential member of the media, covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's FanNation. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. And as always, I appreciate your continued support for the program. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. On today's episode, we are going to talk about one key quarterback assumption being made this time of year. We're also going to take a look at a lot of veteran and rookie possibilities for the offensive tackle position, because this is an offensive tackle heavy mailbag episode. And we are starting with Billy, who sent in this offensive tackle topic and question, who said, what if we pick up David Bakhtiari in free agency, trade back into the late teens, early 20s of the first round, and snag Georgia right tackle Amarius Mims as our right tackle? He's sort of ready to play. He wouldn't need to sit a year behind Wiley. He's probably ready to split time. Most of his problems are actually due to a lack of reps. Then draft a quality left tackle who does need some or a lot of work in one of the later rounds, someone like Walter Rouse or Javon Foster or someone else I've never heard of. The kind of player I'm thinking about would be a Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU type, but someone projected to go later than the second round, as Suamataia is currently projected to go second round. So the first part of this question pertains to David Bakhtiari, former Green Bay Packers offensive tackle, left tackle, all-pro caliber left tackle, has been dealing with injuries, setbacks, surgeries, all of those things, getting older as well. He turns 33 in September of this year, former 4th-round pick in the 2013 NFL Draft of Green Bay, started since his rookie season at left tackles, earned 3 trips to the Pro Bowl, two times he's been on the first team All-Pro list, and then again suffered the ACL injury in 2020, played only 1 game in 2021, in 11 in 2022, and then 1 again in 2023. The surgery that ended his 2023 season, though, was supposed to be his final one. Supposedly, they finally figured out the biggest issue, still lingering from the original injury and the original surgeries, and this was going to fix it all. However, the Green Bay Packers did not show the patience, did not show, I don't want to say the confidence or the faith in that, but they eventually released him this offseason in order to save $20 million in salary cap space. Now, there is still some speculation that the Green Bay Packers will actually bring Bakhtiari back themselves, especially after the NFL draft, if they don't go out and nab, say, a left tackle that they feel, supremely confident in. But if they don't, and he's available, he does apparently plan on playing. He does not, from all signs and indications, does not appear to be retiring. And when he's on the field, he's been solid. Even the one game that he played last year was a season opener against the Chicago Bears, looked very, very good in that game. And then after that game, had some issues with the knee flare up, some fluid show up, and they said, you know what, let's shut this down. Let's get this last surgery in. Let's clean this thing out once and for all and get it right. So that's what they went ahead and did. And now he's a free agent. So the question is about signing him. And in order to do that, the question you really have to have is, how confident are you in the medicals that you can keep him on the field? Because if you sign him and you draft a young right tackle to start, it makes sense on paper, right? Like if you look at David Bakhtiari left tackle, Amarius Mims right tackle as a rookie, that's a solid duo, right? The problem is if Bakhtiari goes down and you follow the path of this strategy where you go probably day 3 at left tackle, look to produce to develop that guy over the next year, you're stuck with either putting that rookie who's a day 3 rookie and not prepared in there, or you're putting Andrew Wiley at left tackle while Mims holds down right tackle, or you're putting in Trent Scott. That is much less advantageous. Like if you go from David Bakhtiari and Amarius Mims at right tackle, Bakhtiari at left tackle, to Wiley, Scott, or third, day 3 rookie, that is a much less attractive scenario. So that is the only part of this I really have a problem with. That brings us to the draft part. So David Bakhtiari by himself, 1-year deal, I'm not opposed to it at all. Like I said, if the medicals check out and if the staff and this team is confident in the medicals, I don't poo-poo on a 1-year deal for David Bakhtiari at all. Now, in one of the latest ESPN, let's get to the draft part of this, right? And then one of the latest ESPN mock drafts, Amarius Mims specifically goes to Philadelphia at number 22. And so the minimum is going to take to get him right is number 21 because the Eagles aren't likely going to send you number 22. So you can go get a right tackle of your future. Miami holds the number 21 pick. So if they're willing to trade a deal that looks something like number 36 and 67 this year and a 2025 third is going to satisfy the point values for that pick. So a 2nd round pick and 2 third-round picks to move up to number 21, you get Amarius Mims. That leaves the Washington Commanders numbers 40, 78, and 100 on day 2 in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. Then you don't pick again until 139 on day 3. So with those picks, your options look like guys like this. And I'm including 2nd round picks. I know that the original question was post 2nd round guys, but I'm including these guys because there's a point here. Kingsley Suamaitea out of BYU. He's got right tackle and left tackle experience. Patrick Paul out of Houston, left tackle. Kieran Amagaji out of Yale, left tackle. Dominic Pooney out of Kansas. Looks like he's going to be a guard more than anything else. Christian Jones out of Texas, right tackle. Brandon Coleman out of TCU, probably going to be a guard. So those are really your options. So really you have like 4 options in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. 2 of them are left tackles, Patrick Paul and Kieran Amagaji. One of them is a right tackle and left tackle. Most recently played left tackle, Kingsley Suamaitea. So you call 3 of those guys left tackles. If you're looking to bring in a left tackle to develop behind David Bakhtiari, you have to do it, in my opinion, with the understanding that development process may get accelerated incredibly quickly if Bakhtiari suffers another injury or a setback to the injury that he's already suffered setbacks to. If that happens, you don't want to be sitting there going, all right, do we go with the veteran we just replaced with the 1st round pick? Do we go with the veteran who is a 2-3-time backup? Or do we go with the rookie that we drafted on Saturday? That's not an advantageous situation. So to me, if you're going to go this route, you're going to go in the 2nd round. And for me, you're going to go with Kingsley Suamaitea because he brings you that right tackle and left tackle experience. You have tape to watch on both ends. You've seen him do it on both ends. There's been flashes of talent on both ends. So you can work with him. I mean, honestly, you work with him on the left side, right? And you work with Amarius Mims on the right side and you move forward that way. But you know that if you need to move for some reason, things go kind of crazy, you can do that because he has experience there. For me, OTAs is where I draw the line. Now, this isn't necessarily where the team's going to draw the line, but I bring in Mims, I bring in Suamaitea, I bring in the rookie minicamp, I bring in the OTA practices. And if that rookie left tackle, Kingsley Suamaitea in this situation, or Amarius Mims, you kind of have a little bit of time to play around, moving them both around a little bit. But if neither rookie proves to me they're going to be my left tackle this year, it's David Bakhtiari's job. Kind of the same goes with the right tackle, to be quite honest with you. Both these guys come in and neither of them really look NFL ready. You might end up with Bakhtiari and Andrew Wiley as your 2 bookends and those 2 guys developing in the shadows. But for me, whatever I go into training camp with, my 2 tackles that start training camp, those are my starters. Now, in real life, I've seen NFL teams take like 2, sometimes even 3 weeks to figure out who their real starting 5 is. So that process could go a little bit further. But again, for me, if you're going to if you're going to bring in a guy like David Bakhtiari, first of all, you're probably going to bring him in kind of promising him that starting job to begin with anyway, because that's the caliber of player that he is. But for me, if you're going to bring in a veteran of that age with that history of injuries, you need to go get the security behind it a little bit earlier than day 3. That's just my opinion. So you take your left tackle in the 2nd round and pick 40, again, which to me would be probably Suamaitea. And that means your number 36, 40, 67, and a 2024 third. So 2 seconds and 2 thirds are now going towards securing your 2 tackle spots. So like I said in the opening, 4 draft picks and a 1-year deal to David Bakhtiari to try to get your tackle situation fixed, something that the Washington Commanders, this Washington franchise, has not been able to do since trading Trent Williams. So that's the way I would look at that. Andrew Wiley on the other side is on a deal where the Washington Commanders could get out of that very easily, and he's going to be on the wrong side of 30 after this season. So to me, even if you add David Bakhtiari, it doesn't lessen the need for an offensive tackle so bad that I'm not looking till day 3. I don't think it does that at all. I think what it does is it gives you options, so you're not rushing a guy on the field before he's completely ready. Oh, by the way, you've also got Cornelius Lucas in the mix, so it gives you a lot of options, gives you a lot of bites at the apple. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this team go tackle twice in the first 3 picks of this year's NFL draft, their NFL draft, just like they went DBs twice in the first 2 last year, just because that's how important this position group is. And that's how long this franchise has not had an answer there, and how important you need to get an answer there, especially if you're going to be running with a young quarterback. But what if this tackle class isn't actually all that it's hyped up to be? That's coming up next on today's Mailbag episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire properly. So LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view today and every day, everydayers. Thanks for coming through. Sorry that I missed an episode earlier this week. It was my daughter's birthday. I was in Ohio. The hotel had terrible Wi-Fi. I had to get up early in the morning on Tuesday to drive back home, and all that just combined made it infeasible, whatever the word is, to do that episode. So I apologize for that, but don't worry. We've got plenty of content coming up as we lead towards the NFL draft, including a Saturday episode coming up next weekend for everybody. Insiders, you've gotten plenty of Saturday content over the months and days and weeks. But this next week, everybody's getting Saturday content. Locked On's NFL mock draft goes live on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, streaming, or maybe it's 7 a.m. It just says 7 Eastern time, streaming on Locked On Sports Today's 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series and hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL mock draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today, the 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And the great thing about YouTube and all that we do here is you can always find it whenever you have time to find it if you can't be there live. Moving on to this mailbag episode, Merle said, I've noticed that the majority of the top tackle prospects are right tackles. Is this class of O-linemen overrated besides Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu? So it's interesting how things kind of change over time, right? So it used to be in the NFL and NFL scouting and drafting that players that we now call versatile and able to play, Swiss Army knives, those types of guys. Well, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, they were criticized for being tweeners. It was a problem, right? We wanted clear-cut answers. We wanted our safety to look like this. We wanted our free safety to look like that. Our linebackers need to look like this. We don't want these tweeners. Now they're not called tweeners. They're called versatile, and people climb all over each other to get them. And nowadays, you see left tackles move to right tackle. You see right tackles move to left tackle more and more. Almost every single year, you're getting a new big-name tackle moving from one side to the other. And what used to be, have you ever tried wiping your butt with your other hand? Why would you ask a tackle to flip sides? Has been replaced with, well, do anything enough and it becomes second nature. And every time it happens and it's successful, another team looks at another guy to do it. Sometimes it's a college prospect. Sometimes it's an NFL veteran. And again, one of the latest and greatest examples, Tristan Wirfs. We already talked about him a little bit, but again, started off his career coming out of Iowa to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, started at right tackle, won a Super Bowl, played all pro caliber play. The Bucs asked him to move to the left. He even admitted himself that he was nervous. He was worried that he wasn't going to succeed, that he wasn't going to be able to do it, that he wasn't going to play at the same level. Came out, had a very solid campaign for a team that surprised a lot of people and went to the playoffs last year. So he's, again, not the only one, but just kind of one of the latest examples of that. So, but at the end of the day, just because Tristan Wirfs was able to do it does not mean that everybody can do it, right? It doesn't mean that it's just kind of the way it goes. Another thing we've seen developed over the last 15, 20 years is defensive coordinators kind of almost suddenly realizing that just because the blind side is the, usually the left side, doesn't mean my best pass rusher has to go there, because if I get pressure on the quarterback fast enough, even if it's from the right side, even if it's from their face side, it's still effective. And so now you see some teams employing their best pass rushers on the other side, on the quarterback's non-blind side, vision side, sighted side, whatever you want to call it. Defenses are willing to move players around, which makes your right tackle almost as important as your left tackle, or your non-blind side tackle as important as your blind side tackle. But looking at the numbers here, I looked at the PFF top 100 board. Again, kind of mix it up evaluations here and people's opinions here, because this draft class is kind of all over the place. You see guys in some mock drafts going into first round, and those guys in another mock draft are going third round. So there are certainly some evaluations that are all over the place. But when you look at these offensive tackles in this class, and you look at the top 100 of PFF's big board, going in order of the guys that are in the top 100, you got left tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, right tackle Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State, left tackle Olufashanu out of Penn State, right tackle J.C. Latham from Alabama, right tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia, left tackle Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, right tackle Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, left tackle Kieran Namagaji out of Yale, offensive tackle, gets more of that here in just a second, Kingsley Suamaitea out of BYU, left tackle Brandon Coleman out of TCU, right tackle Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, right tackle Roger Rosengarten out of Washington. So offensive tackle Kingsley Suamaitea, already kind of talked about this a little bit. He's got right tackle and left tackle experience, so I just put him down as offensive tackle because I feel like you can pretty much pencil him in anywhere. Brandon Coleman out of TCU is projected by many to be a guard in the NFL. So, he's listed as a tackle. You kind of almost take him off this list. But when you do look at this list, you end up with 6 right tackles, 5 left tackles, and 1 offensive tackle. So call it a 7th right tackle or a 6th left tackle, depending on where you go ahead and slot him. That's actually a pretty even split. But again, in older times, right, those right tackles would not be valued as highly as maybe they are now. Like a guy like Talisi Fuaga, who is coming in looking like a right tackle. Now, don't be wrong, the team that drafts him could still put him at left tackle, but coming in as a right tackle, usually a lot of people have a lot of concern and a lot of question. But again, the more and more it becomes normal to move guys around, the less those concerns stick out. What I like about this class and why I don't think it's necessarily overhyped is because of the split. In the first round, you've got mainly projected 2 left tackles, 3 right tackles. So it's 5 tackles, but the split is there, 2 left, 3 on the right. In the second round, you've got 1 left tackle, 1 right tackle, 1 offensive tackle. Suamaitea is a second round projection by many, all right, not everybody. In the third round, you got 2 left tackles, 2 right tackles. So really, and any of these guys on this list, even Brandon Coleman, again, I don't think he's going to stick at tackle. I think he's going to move to guard. But any of these guys on this list, if they're a regular starter by 2026 NFL season, you're not going to be surprised. You're not going to go, whoa, man, I didn't really see that coming. That's a lot of tackle talent. And because it's spread out so much, every single team gets a crack at landing one of these guys. The trick is getting the right guy at the right spot for the right value and then turning him into an all-pro to make him a permanent part of your roster. So, great question there. We're going to wrap this thing up with some visits questions from YouTube and from some insiders. And we're also going to talk about a quarterback assumption that may not actually come to fruition, but probably will. That's coming up next on today's Mailbag episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Monopoly Go. I've been told that I'm a competitive person. People in my family will tell you that we sit down and play cards, play a board game, play a video game. I can kind of get a little bit intense. So I do have a competitive side. I think we all do to a certain level. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends and my family. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But now I can also crack into their vaults and execute a heist to take all of their riches for myself. And the leaderboard shows me and them who the biggest monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends, join your families, download Monopoly Go now free in the App Store or Google Play. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders mailbag episode, we got two more questions that I want to try to hit before we run out of time here. Merle and Maurice came through with 3 names of potential players that the Washington Commanders could target: trading for offensive tackle Lucas Niang, signing offensive tackle Mekhi Becton, and signing wide receiver Kenny Golladay. 2 free agents and 1 guy still on the roster that could potentially be traded for. Trading for Lucas Niang, or really any offensive tackle who's on the roster, I'm not really a fan of giving up straight up draft capital for a guy who's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't see this team engaging in contract extensions with a guy who's mostly unproven. Niang has barely any starting experience in the NFL right now. He's had 9 total starts, in his career. Would rather wait to see if the Chiefs just release him after the 2024 NFL draft, or maybe set a 2025 7th after the draft over to the Chiefs to bring him. And that's probably about the extent that I would go to get an unproven guy of that caliber. Signing Mekhi Becton is interesting. So he turns 25 this week. Literally, Mekhi Becton's birthday is this week, turns 25. He's out 13 starts as a solid rookie, right? Really looked like he was going to deliver on some of that promise. Then he had 16 starts last year, not as great of a promise, but he only had 1 start in 2021, 2022 due to injuries. That really kind of derailed things. He was released this offseason, but didn't come back this offseason, wasn't retained this offseason. He's a 1-year deal candidate after the NFL draft because it's better off overall for him to wait and for teams to wait. Like, don't go into this thing. You're a week out. Don't go into this and say, you know what, we need to go swoop this guy up. No, wait and see what happens in the draft. See if a guy falls into your lap. See if you get a guy that you really like. If you don't, go ahead and go after him. So in theory, in this conversation, compared to the one we had earlier, you could kind of swap David Bakhtiari for Mekhi Becton and have basically just as much risk for almost different reasons in that conversation. So I wouldn't necessarily hate either of them. I just also don't think going after or planning to go after either of them takes that need off your board all that much. As far as wide receiver Kenny Golladay is concerned, we talked about this before on the show. He's 6'4", turns 31 in November, 3rd round pick in 2017 by the Lions, made the Pro Bowl in 2019, signed a massive deal with the Giants ahead of the 2021 NFL season, and then since then has had 43 catches for 602 yards and a touchdown. That's nothing, really, especially compared to his contract. The question here is this a Kenny Golladay problem or is this a Giants problem, right? And on the outside looking in, it's not easy to tell. Now, NFL insiders, and I don't mean Ian Rappaport's Adam Schefter, I mean people actually inside the league and the GMs who talk to each other and the coaches who talk to each other and the players who talk to each other, they know they know the story more than we do. But if it's not a Kenny Golladay problem, and look, Kadarius Toney, I know he's had some issues, and his personality issues and attitude issues have been there since before he was drafted, so nobody should be surprised. But as far as talent is concerned, the Giants really couldn't do anything with him. The Chiefs at least got some stuff out of him, right? Darren Waller, one of the best in the league before he goes to New York and then basically disappears. Sterling Shepard has had some injuries, true, but also has been, underutilized or improperly utilized when he was healthy. Darius Slayton was a guy who looked like he was on an upward trajectory and just kind of disappeared in New York. So I would be willing to buy that the Kenny Golladay flame out is less on Kenny and more on the Giants just because of their history. So I wouldn't hate it. I don't know if I would get super excited about it. I would want to see him in camp and see him at OTAs and all that stuff. But, look, the dude certainly has some talent. You're going to get him on a 1-year deal. You're going to get him on probably very little guaranteed, if anything. And if it doesn't work out in OTAs or training camp, you just release him, you move on, and it was a good try, right? Robert came through. If the Commanders missed out on drafting Jordan Morgan or Tyler Guyton, they might have to settle for Patrick Paul, the kid from BYU. And basically the question from Robert here is, do they bring back Charles Leno? I understand the question, but I don't think that's something that you do, because at the end of the day, the Commanders didn't need the cap space when they released Charles Leno Jr. So to me, you're moving on from Charles Leno Jr. because you're moving on from Charles Leno Jr. And it's not just Charles. Like, you look at the amount of players they didn't re-sign this offseason. So I think if you come out of the draft and you're looking to sign a veteran left tackle and your choices are Charles Leno Jr., David Bakhtiari, or Mekhi Becton, Charles Leno Jr. is 3rd on that list. Not necessarily personally, like in a vacuum, but just because of the way that this team has approached this offseason. Final question in this mailbag is about the quarterback position. Paul comes through and says, if we draft a new quarterback, Will he be the favorite to start the season? The easy answer is yes. If you draft a quarterback at number 2, Jane Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams in a surprise twist, Bo Nix, Michael Bennett, it doesn't matter who it is. You draft quarterback at number 2, just about everybody's going to expect him to start immediately. But talking to general manager Adam Peters and coach Dan Quinn, they both talked at the league meetings the last time we got to speak to them on the record, that they both said that they believed in Marcus Mariota's abilities, that if needed, he could help lead the team and certainly make the throws that they need him to. And Adam Peters even discussed saying that there's no pressure on the team, there's no pressure on the staff to force the rookie quarterback into play before he's ready. Now, that's all well and good until the actual pressure starts to build. And I'm talking mostly outside pressure. You guys, the booze in the stadium, the lack of ticket sales, the social media content, the social media comments, the negative articles that are going to be written, when the team loses 6 in a row, for example. If the rookie isn't ready and Marcus Mariota struggles, how long does Dan Quinn hold out? How long does Adam Peters hold out on forcing Dan Quinn's hand? Because remember, Adam Peters was the superstar of the offseason. Dan Quinn was a guy that a lot of people did not want in this organization. Now, since he got here, a lot of people have gotten very excited. I am included in that batch. But if they come out struggling and Marcus Mariota comes out struggling, a lot of people are going to start looking at Dan and say, okay, dude, this is your team. This is your second chance at being a head coach. What are you going to do? So that pressure to not start the rookie right away before he's ready, that pressure right now may not exist, but that pressure could exist greatly if this team does not start hot. So will he be the favorite? Yeah, I think any number 2 overall pick quarterback is going to be the favorite to be the starter. Does it mean he'll actually start the season? Not necessarily, but I think every move regardless is going to be made and has been made and will be made based on setting up that rookie quarterback for success, right? If you see Kenny Golladay signed after the NFL draft, it's not going to be so that Marcus Mariota can win games early as a Commanders quarterback. It's going to be because they think that he might be a fit for that young quarterback down the road, whether it's 4 games, 8 games, or next season. That's going to be the reason they bring in anybody else. So, take that with for what it's worth. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, unless that kid comes in and just stinks up rookie minicamp and stinks up OTAs, I think training camp, that rookie quarterback is probably your starting guy. And, look, they might play the game of we're going to give the veteran the first team reps, whatever. But, again, the pressure may not be there yet in early mid-April, but the pressure will be there if this team does not produce. Now, look, if Marcus Mariota goes out there, gets the opportunity and balls out, and this team goes 4-2 in the first 6 games, then I don't think there will be a whole lot of people worried about getting the young quarterback time to grow and develop. So great questions, Commanders fans. Appreciate all of you for coming through. Coming up tomorrow, we got more Commanders conversations, one more episode before we have our press conference with Adam Peters ahead of the NFL draft, which is coming up next weekend. So this thing is about to get hopping and popping. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, just throw them in the YouTube comment section or text me directly as a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to get in on that today. Don't forget, also check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 live streaming sports channel on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thanks for coming through on a regular basis like you do. Until we speak again, if you're on about, be safe, be kind. And I'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.